USA rolls over Finland, and we need to talk about how to approach the upcoming trade deadline.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Friday, February 14th, and I want to send you some love on this Valentine's Day for making Locked On Boston Bruins part of your daily routine. It's free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I encourage you to spread the love by telling that special someone in your life about the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. Get them to subscribe, get them to rate and review, and get more people on board with this community that we have built here, talking about our favorite hockey team. On today's episode, we're going to discuss some ways to approach the NHL trade deadline, not from the Bruins perspective, but for us as those who followed the team. We'll also touch on USA's big win over Finland last night. Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman on the winning side, of course, and also preview tomorrow night's massive game between USA and Canada. Also, Finland taking on Sweden in the afternoon. Elias Lindholm back in action there. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. Now, before we get to the Four Nations face-off, I wanted to start today by reiterating some trade deadline rules that I established for myself about 5 years ago. For 5 years between 2013 and 2018-19, I was a full-time hockey news writer at The Score, which is one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I was on the hockey desk, and I would write up all the big hockey stories that would come across the desk, share them out via mobile notification if they were big enough or to each individual team. During my time there, I learned some things that I've carried with me through each and every trade deadline, as well as off-season signings and the like. Again, it was a privilege to cover the annual trade deadline as work. Since then, I've been covering it from my home office for the podcast. But there are some simple trade deadline rules that you quite simply need to follow. And the first is, remember that not every report or a rumor is fact, and that you need to consider the source. Now, when I was working on the desk at The Score, we would not consider a report or a rumor to be a story unless it came from some of the most trusted hockey people. Back then, it was your Bob McKenzie's, your Darren Dragers. Since Chris Johnston has emerged, Elliot Friedman, Frank Saravelli, Emily Kaplan from ESPN. These are all kind of the biggest insiders. And if a rumor or report is out there that's not coming from one of those big people, you need to take it with a bit of a grain of salt. Now, there are some people who have emerged who you may follow on social media that have indeed broken some stories and trades in the past, thinking specifically of Shayna Goldman of The Athletic. Others, maybe outside of like the big Sportsnet, TSN, ESPN, The Athletic, who have broken trades and broken news. It's obviously possible. But the example I use today is this report or speculation that the Bruins and Rangers were in discussions in a deal involving Trent Frederick going to the Rangers for Brennan Othman and Chris Kreider, which is just insane. There's not even a reason to mention that because it is so crazy. So remember that not every report or rumor is fact until it's announced by the teams themselves, even if it's coming from the most trusted hockey people. And there are, of course, fake insiders, fake team accounts out there, and people who just throw things out there for the engagement, for the quote tweets, etc. You don't have to fall for it. You don't have to believe it. Yes, it's fun to speculate. Yes, it's fun to get involved in different rumors, different scenarios, but it's also important to use some media literacy, to use some discernment, and understand that not everything that pops up on your timeline is indeed fact. Another one that I like to stick to is remember that there are actual human beings with feelings and families involved in these decisions. It's not always easy for management to make a move because they know that it's going to affect the players. It will affect their families. It will affect their friends. Yes, it affects us as fans in terms of the emotional pull that this team has on us, but there's very real logistical implications of being traded. You have to move. You have to, and oftentimes, if it's an in-season trade, you leave your family for a greater period of time because you're going to have to work out where you're going to live next and all that kind of stuff. These guys have personal relationships in the locker room. It's tough to be separated from your teammates, and unless you, of course, requested a trade, but to go into a new room in the middle of a season where there's already established relationships, there's already established hierarchies, much less the system that you have to learn, and getting out there and having some added pressure by needing to perform as a guy that was brought in to your team. Finally, another rule I like to stick to is just have fun out there. You don't need to at the team if the Bruins make a trade because the admins like Elaine Cavallari isn't out here making those trades. Eric Russo isn't out here making those trades. It's coming from Don Sweeney. They're just announcing what decisions are made by management. At the end of the day, these are human beings. The social media team isn't the one making the trade. Don't yell, curse, or threaten them. The players aren't the ones making the trades. They're the ones who are most affected by this. Their families, they themselves. We are observers. We have opinions, certainly. We have attachments to these players. We want the Bruins to succeed. But at the end of the day, it is hockey. It is a business. It's a game. There's so many complicated things that go on here. And for me, I try to just be as level-headed about it as possible because at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect me personally, especially in relation to the players, their families, yeah, even management, even ownership. Anybody who works for the team is affected by it. So with the trade deadline, like 3 weeks away, and with increased rumors, reports coming out there, use some discernment. Try to not react to the wrong people, and let's just have some fun out there. And hopefully there's some good, fun trades with regards to our Bruins that, yes, we may have to say farewell to some guys, but could bring in some new guys that we will fall in love with because they are Boston Bruins, and we just love this team, no matter who is playing for it. Now, last night, USA just stomped over Finland. not in a political sense, thankfully, but on the ice. And we'll discuss that as well as Charlie McAvoy's role on the team here as the podcast continues. FanDuel is where you want to be this weekend to get in on the action on the hard court. When the game tips off, the NBA is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using the live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, it was tight there for a little bit, but USA did pull away from Finland last night with a 6-1 victory. It was Henri Jokiharju who opened the scoring for Finland, but then it was all USA from there, with the Tkachuk brothers, Brady and Matthew, combining for 4 goals, 2 apiece. Zach Werenski on the blue line leading the way with 3 points. Matthew Tkachuk also had an assist, so he had 3 points. Again, very weird, very odd to be rooting for the Tkachuk brothers. We're so used to, as Bruins fans, rooting against them with the Florida Panthers and the Ottawa Senators, respectively. But if you're rooting for Team USA, you were rooting for those guys last night, cheering them on as they scored some big goals. And pretty crazy to have 2 brothers who had never really played a meaningful hockey game together before Thursday, making such a big impact. Keith, their mother, obviously very proud, and those guys were both very excited to play with each other, very honored to represent their country, and they're already looking forward to Saturday night. Brady saying it's going to be the biggest game he's ever played in his career. Big build up to it. US versus Canada. Bigger than just the guys on the ice. So many people in the past, present, and future that are excited about it. And of course, with the political climate and talk of the 51st state and all that, you know that emotions are going to be high. We'll talk about that a bit later on in the podcast. Now, as far as the Bruins go, and just to mention, the Tkachuk brothers became the first siblings to each score multiple goals in the same international tournament game. Zach Werenski set the record for most assists by a U.S. defenseman in an NHL international tournament game, and tied the record for most assists and points by any defenseman in an NHL international game. Charlie McAvoy started as his defense partner. He did not record a point last night. He skated in 19 minutes and 45 seconds, which was third among all U.S. defensemen, behind Werenski and Jacob Slavin of the Carolina Hurricanes, and ahead of Noah Hannafin, Adam Fox, Brock Faber. McAvoy was a +2 on the night, so he was on the ice for 2 of those even strength goals. Recorded 1 shot, was credited with 3 giveaways, 1 takeaway, and the real honor for him is playing for his country, but also for his father-in-law. Of course, McAvoy is married to Mike Sullivan's daughter, Kylie, who recently gave birth to the couple's first child. McAvoy plays defense for the Bruins. Sullivan coaches the Pittsburgh Penguins. Their careers have not overlapped until now. And McAvoy, this is via Stephen Wino of the Globe and Mail up here in Canada. He said he has a son now. For Reese's dad to play for Reese's grandpa, those are things that Charlie would have never dreamed of. This is where hockey's taken us, where their jobs have taken them, and it's extremely special. Sullivan said, "Someday we might look back on this and smile." Charlie means the world to the Sullivan family. First and foremost, he's a terrific hockey player. He's a fierce competitor. But more important than that, he's a great kid and a good person, and he means the world to our family. He added what it's like when Charlie and his daughter had their first baby. For Sullivan and his wife, it's an incredible thrill, a privilege to be a grandparent. They're enjoying the process as well. Only a couple weeks old. This event just adds to that excitement where the family can come together, not only to celebrate this new baby, but also to share the event together. Just so special. McAvoy did add that he does get teased a bit by his U.S. teammates for his father-in-law being the coach. But he added he and Sullivan, professionals, no concern about the dynamics of playing for his father-in-law. Everybody gets in at some point. His friends all know, Charlie said, and everybody knows that it's funnier now, easier to make a couple jokes about it, but at the end of the day, they've both worked hard to be there, and it's an incredible honor to be there together. So, Team USA beating Team Finland last night. They now lead the tournament with 3 points, and they're ahead of Canada now in the standings. Canada only with 2 points. Let me just update the standings here. Of course, it's the top 2 teams that go to the final. Right now, it's U.S. with 3 points, Canada with 2 points, Sweden with 1 point, Finland with 0 points. So tomorrow's Finland-Sweden game is huge because if a team's able to pick up 3 points, it could propel them into second place, depending on the outcome of tomorrow night's U.S.-Canada game. Say U.S. were to beat Canada in regulation, then either Sweden with a regulation or overtime win could catapult them for second place, or even Finland with the regulation win could catapult Canada if they were to lose in regulation tomorrow night. We'll talk more about these games coming up and preview the weekend here as the podcast continues. Hey, thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Please do, on this Valentine's Day, show the pod some love by subscribing on YouTube, on your favorite podcast app, and telling that special Bruins fan in your life about the fact that there's a podcast out there that covers your favorite hockey team every single day. Now, the Four Nations face-off on Saturday. There will be a doubleheader. Sweden, Finland will play at 1 p.m. and then Canada, USA will play at 8 p.m. There's going to be a lot of emotions in the Bell Center tomorrow night with some somewhat tense relations between the two countries. A lot of U.S. players being asked how they feel about the anthem being booed in Canada lately, and this comes in the midst of President Donald Trump threatening tariffs, referring to Canada as the 51st state, our prime minister as Governor Trudeau. It's just really tense right now, so expect emotions to be pretty charged on Saturday night. When it comes to Sweden, they were off on Thursday. There was a big snowstorm in Montreal. So Sweden, while they were preparing to take on Finland on Saturday afternoon, were given some rest by coach Sam Hallam. That includes, of course, our boy Elias Lindholm. He thought the team was really good for 50 minutes Wednesday night. Philip Gustafson all the way out. They're happy with the way they played against Canada. And all things being equal, they should beat Finland on Saturday. Finland, they got really good forwards, but their back end is pretty weak, and therefore I would expect Sweden to come out on top of that one. When it comes to USA Canada, I would expect Jordan Binnington to be back in net for Canada. Connor Hellebuck in net for USA. Not really expecting our boy Jeremy Swayman to get much playing time in this tournament, if any. Buried on the depth chart behind Hellebuck and Jake Ottinger. You never know, though, because it's possible that there could be some injuries. We've already seen Shea Theodore on Team Canada get banged up, and he's out of the tournament. He's week to week now for the Vegas Golden Knights. So who knows what could happen, but two big games on the docket, two pretty big rivalries as well. Sweden, Finland played a lot of hockey against each other. There's only 2 games remaining in the round robin for each team. You got to take advantage of every opportunity in front of you, and it should be a great game with another snowstorm, I should add, heading through Ontario into Montreal. So it could be a snowy day on Saturday. And for those lucky enough to be in Montreal for these games, it's going to be quite a wild atmosphere. Shea Theodore, I mentioned, out of the tournament for Canada, a big blow, John Cooper said. Connor McDavid said it hurt, obviously, Canada to only have 5 defensemen in that game against Sweden. Jack Eichel saying it stinks for Theodore for the Vegas Golden Knights. Never fun seeing anyone get hurt. Travis Sanheim of the Philadelphia Flyers was the healthy scratch, the only additional defenseman on Canada's roster, so he will likely get in there. Sam Bennett was another healthy scratch. We'll see if he gets in on the action on Saturday. I mentioned yesterday how he and Charlie McAvoy, Brad Marchand have become kind of buddies in the locker room. If you haven't seen it yet, go check out the video of Brad Marchand mic'd up after the game. Just so fun to see him having the time of his life out there. Now, when it comes to the Bruins, just to wrap up, again, there's trade reports, rumors out there. The Bruins should go for Jared McCann. Just looking at the headlines on Google here. Bruins should swing for a big Kraken star. And that is referring to Jared McCann. Another headline. Why Bruins Trent Frederick makes sense as a trade target for the Oilers. Bruins expected asking price for Brandon Carlo. Brad Marchand expecting to stay with the Bruins. 3 reasons to be optimistic about Bruins playoff chances. Bruins should make big move with exciting defensemen. What is that one referring to? I guess it's Mason Lohrei. And the fact that he is a restricted free agent this summer, getting him signed will be a priority, of course. New York Rangers and Bruins reportedly combining for massive trade involving top prospect. That's the one that I mentioned earlier. Trent Frederick to the Rangers for Brendan Othmann and Chris Kreider. Like, why? Why would the Rangers do that? It makes no sense. Anyways, that's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Thank you so much for tuning in today, my friends. I hope you're all doing well, taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other. Have a happy Valentine's Day. If you are, not celebrating, hope you have a great Friday. I'm very excited about the return of the show Yellow Jackets. 2 new episodes to watch. And also watching the final episodes of Cobra Kai. Over the weekend, might take a couple of the boys to see Captain America. It's Family Day weekend here in Canada, or Ontario anyways. So it is a holiday on Monday, but I should still be back to have a fresh pod for you. We're helping some family move, but otherwise, pretty chill day. Some more snow coming, and we already have a lot here. So stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Thank you for supporting the show. Check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey as well. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.